Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Rounding the Bases, presented by Community America Credit Union, invested in you. I'm recording this in advance. We usually do, but as this is running, baseball season has already begun. I can't tell you how it's going because I can't predict the future, but I can tell you that my guest today is all decked out in Royals gear. We'll get to him in just a moment. First off, a shout out to my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City. They're great partners of mine. If you are looking for a resource looking to hire, looking to be placed, whatever it might be, check them out, chiefofstaffkc.com, making connections that matter. And my connection today definitely matters, and he's a guy that I've gotten to know fairly well over the last year, and a really, really impressive background. And today we're going to dive into a lot of different topics, including the world of manufacturing. I'm joined by a forward-thinking leader in the relentless defense of American industry. His name is Fred Stipkovits. He's a veteran coastguardsman and the president of UltraTech Aerospace, where an employee-first culture is built with as much precision as the products they manufacture. Using an innovative approach to workforce development, he's on a mission to fabricate more than business success, but to revitalize an entire community that works together as partners, not competitors, achieving exceptional results for all. And I'm joined right now. I said he's decked out in his Royals gear. If you check out some clips on YouTube, you will see that he officially has the title now for best Royals shirt to have appeared on the show. The nice Hawaiian shirt with KC and Royals and the crown and slugger and all of that. You're not even a KC native and you dressed up for me. Of course, I'm not either. But both of us way back when grew up on the East Coast, or, well, I guess Pittsburgh's not quite the East Coast, but it's close enough. Fred, how are you?
I'm well, Joel. Thanks, man. That was a hell of an introduction. Damn, that makes me choking me up.
Good? Well, I always give all credit for all of that good stuff to Ashley. She is a wizard with it and makes us all look good. And you know this as a leader, you got to give credit where credit is due. And if you're going to allocate those responsibilities, you certainly want to make sure that you let them know they're doing a great job. So thanks for that. So much to talk about. And I certainly want to get into your Coast Guard background. I think in part because it seems to be the branch of the military that nobody ever talks about or knows about, and it's one of the branches, and I'm not sure why that happens, but let's talk a little bit about UltraTech and the business that you are running, and one that you've put your all into. By the way, you'll learn in this podcast real quickly, Fred is someone that puts his all into everything. There is no half anything with Fred. That's the way that you are wired. Tell me about UltraTech.
Yeah, thanks. UltraTech is a middle market CNC machine shop here in Kansas City. We're predominantly all defense related. We're a 3, 4, and 5 axis CNC machine shop, an aerospace certified welding shop, an assembly and fabrication facility. Real niche market for Kansas City. There's not a lot of us in this market in Kansas City. Some amazing, unbelievably talented individuals that built fighter jet parts in a little nondescript building in Kansas City, Kansas. People drive by every day and have no clue the brain power that's behind our walls and the skill set and capabilities that exist here, that we're pumping out some highly precision made, true American made products.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like this is such a good fit for you and who you are and the way that you work. And like anything else, right? I mean, whether it's the Coast Guard or all your stops along the way, it's all about good teams. It's all about culture. And you are in a profession that I think if done right, that culture, it could take you so many places. I mean, I think that's true for any profession, but the danger in a lot of them to me is that you can get in those ruts. Like, not everybody's lucky enough to go to a baseball game every single day. And by the way, I get in my ruts too, but it's really easy at the end to say, man, come on, they're paying me to talk about baseball and travel around the country. And I could go on and on. People have heard me do that before. But it feels to me like, and I've met some of your people and I've spoken to your company, that there's a lot of pride in the people behind those walls. What's gone into that? And a lot of them have been there for a long, long time, and a lot longer than you, for sure, as well. What goes into the culture at UltraTech?
It's I'm a firm believer it starts at the top, as with everything, right? Everybody can say that, but I walked into this company in this industry 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, and I had never existed in this business. I wasn't in the aerospace industry. I was in manufacturing after I left the military, but I'd never been in a machine shop even. So, I found myself in a role in an industry I had zero experience, zero knowledge, and surrounded by people that have been doing this forever, in a company that really had a bad culture. We weren't very open. We weren't very forward thinking. We weren't really. We weren't a team, and we weren't a family. And I've spent the last 3 years not only focusing on building the business, but building a culture within the business. And we've evolved outside of the walls to build a community awareness. We rebranded our mission and vision that we're a diverse group that's proud to provide precision solutions beyond the ordinary, and that we're working hard to change the culture in American manufacturing. I grew up blue collar, steel mill town, Pittsburgh. Listened my entire life to my uncles and my father and my relatives complain about how the laborer was treated in the blue collar environment, how the hourly worker was treated. And so when I took over here, it was my goal to change that. I did not want to be that CEO, president of a company that lost focus of who made me successful. And so listening, rolling everybody through the office, talking with everybody, getting ideas, promoting from within, growing and developing my employees, all of that, every single bit of that. I recently had a presentation this week from a company called Circle 5 Coaching. Ryan Nelson, great guy. He's heavily involved in the NTMA, and he talks about some of the styles of leadership. You can be a belt or suspenders, and you can help hold people up and lift people up, or you can squeeze people to death to hold them, keep them. And I never really heard that term, but I really truly try to lead this company as a suspender leader, and make sure that everybody has the autonomy to do what they want, is heard, is respected, and we're sitting at like a 95% employee retention rate over the last couple of years. We've had our bumps, we've had our terminations, we've had people leave, but for the most part, we're holding steady on a lot of solid, unbelievable, talented employees in an industry and a market where they could find a job anywhere. And that's my goal. I can't build a successful financial plan if I don't have a foundation, and the foundation is the people.
Oh, there's so much here, Fred. I mean, I think the first thing I would say, like, this isn't just, for manufacturing or traditional, say, blue collar industry. This is for any industry. There's a safety or a comfort, I guess I should say, in doing things the way they've always been done. It's just the status quo is generally not the right way, but it's the safe way. It's the easier way. So in general, I know I'm making a general statement here, but I mean, based on history, those manufacturers were always overlooked. That's wrong for me to say always, but that's just the way it was, right? I mean, that's how your dad and his generation grew up. That's how they grew up in the steel mills or whatever it was. So if that's the way it's always been done, then why would anyone care about the culture, right? I mean, it's a little bit of that, just suck it up and go to work. And I think probably a pride factor in that too. Like, I'm tough and I can handle it. I don't need you to take care of me. Everybody wants to be taken care of, right? I mean, there's it feels like you're at, not just you, but that there's a tipping point here. Like why shouldn't manufacturers be taken care of? Why shouldn't that culture matter too? So, I mean, it sounds to me like a lot of that inspiration came from what you saw growing up and understanding that it could be better. But if I remember correctly from some of our conversations, that's not something your father understood, was it?
No. He stayed at a company being mistreated and and disrespected for 20 plus years because it was, like you said, right? That was the thing, that you didn't leave, you didn't job hop, you didn't, like, a paycheck showed up every Friday, your family was taken care of. Why upset the apple cart? And there's still a lot of that out there in the manufacturing industry, especially with the older generation. Everybody wants to criticize the younger generation of being job hoppers, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at my resume, I've moved around to a lot of companies since I got out of the military. One thing I realized quickly was that I'm not a status quo guy. I don't necessarily want the status quo at all. And you need your long run employees that are comfortable and stable and but everybody has a desire to want to do more somehow, some way. And they just may not realize it until you help them see what those opportunities are. But I moved from company to company. I was always said I'm a 3 to 5 year guy. In 3 to 5 years, I'm either moving up, helping create new things, developing, growing within a company, and I expect my leaders and my bosses to help me out with that, or I'm out. And it's always been hard, especially leaving the military. The Coast Guard, I had such a diverse opportunity doing some search and rescue, counter narcotics, anti-terrorism, all kind of different things. And that's, to find that purpose and that fulfillment, sometimes that's where you end up, is at that up and out. But here now, like, I really truly believe I found my home because I have the opportunity to continue to grow and help other people not be comfortable with that status quo and that daily rut.
There's a little something that you said there that made me think about my experiences, and I've never been in your shoes, but I think that certainly in my industry in television, that you're always looking for the next thing. So I don't know that that's quite the way status quo was with you. For us in our industry, it's, you're climbing the ranks,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you have, like, for me, it was, I hope one day that I could get back and be on the air in Philadelphia or Chicago, the two places I grew up, or maybe Sports Center, something like that. And so everything that I did, everywhere I went, was always with the goal of the next step, which is, fairly selfish and an understandable selfishness. But I think for me, it became my biggest focus. And now you're not really being true to yourself and to your profession. It's not that I was cheating the system or anything like that. It's just my ultimate goal was the next stop. And when I came to Kansas City, I didn't know this would be the last stop, but somewhere along the way, I was like, I think this could be it. Like, I really like this. And that almost freed me up to go do other things, not the speaking and the podcasts and the books and all of that. That came a little bit later still, but it did, like, it freed up this whole obsession with the next stop and just allowed me to be better at what I do. And it sounds to me like at this moment, for a guy that gets antsy after a few years, and we don't know what the future holds, but that you found something different here.
Yeah, 100%. I'm supported by an ownership team. We're private, family owned in Kansas City, but I'm supported by an ownership team that has done nothing but put the utmost trust and respect in everything I've done and everything I get full reign, really, and it's unbelievable. And it's given me the opportunity to step outside of the company and work within our community in Kansas City to continue that kind of broadening the horizons of others. I mean, I'm on the National Tooling and Machining Association board, which is our industry board. I got elected the board president. I'm obviously fairly vocal and don't know when to not speak my mind. So that's led to a president position on that association. I've worked to help our executive director found and really push out there a She Leads Women Driving Manufacturing group to continue the development of just not being an old crusty dude industry that manufacturing is, and broaden the horizons and really empower others within the community to grow and develop. And so those have all, those have all helped evolve and kept that not getting stagnant, not getting in the rut. And just, the amount of effort I put into the company is the same amount of effort I put in outside of the company, same amount of effort I put in to making sure I'm at family events and not neglecting family. I mean, it's a 24/7 job all around, but there's no time to get stagnant now. And like you said, I really realized I found kind of what drives me and have been able to expand that outside of the company walls.
Yeah, it's so good. And, I want to talk a little bit more about that culture in a bit at UltraTech, but I want to go back to your background. And then after that, I'm curious because, you have really learned how to live in this, I'd say, live in a little bit of the world of politics. You're not a politician, but you in a very divisive, difficult world, have learned how to connect with people on both sides of the aisle. And that's a tough skill to do nowadays. I feel like I can do it only in the sense that I think Royals fans come in all shapes and sizes, and it doesn't make sense for me, but that's easy. That's just common sense. You've got to work with everybody. But I wonder how much of that comes from the military background, because when you're in the military and you're in the Coast Guard, you're serving the U.S. It doesn't really matter even what your beliefs are. At the end of the day, you're reporting to the commander-in-chief and you have a job to do. How did you get into the Coast Guard, and how did that shape you?
So, in the 80s, when the steel mills closed, my father found himself unemployed and really wasn't sure what he was going to do to put food on the table. And, my family is a big military family. I'm second generation U.S. born. My mother's side, my grandfather was, my mother's side was all of Italian descent. My grandfather was in World War II. My father's side was half Hungarian, half Italian. My grandfather was born in Hungary. His parents were, or his father was in the World War I on the Hungarian army. They came over to the U.S. He was in World War II on the U.S. side. It's just kind of, it's what you do in my family for the most part. And in the 80s, my father found himself out of work and said, well, time to sign up. And he went and joined the Coast Guard. I don't really, I need to figure that one out. I don't know the exact backstory as to why the Coast Guard. My uncle, who lost his job in the mills as well, went and joined the Navy. And we just became a military family. Desert Storm happened. They were in the reserves. They would go do active duty, but the service above self that's just what they did. And so I was an inner city kid, needed to figure out how to get out of that blue collar world. Not that it was wrong, but as with every parent, they hope that their kids do better than they do. And so schooling and college was a big push, but how do you pay for that when you're a $19 an hour factory worker and in the city? So it was a natural fit to join up. I graduated Friday from high school and I left Monday for boot camp in June of 1996, and knew that was going to be the catalyst to my future. Wanted to fly, started flying, got a commercial pilot's license, got my degree. I was enlisted for 5 years, did a bunch of different things, counter narcotics, pollution investigations, a little bit of search and rescue, whatever the Coast Guard threw at me. I was elected and nominated as the enlisted person of the year in 1997 after, only being in the Coast Guard a year. Had an opportunity. I made it pretty high up in that competition. As you said, right? Nothing. I don't really half-ass anything. And then that just continued to evolve. I went to officer candidate school. I wanted to become an officer. I had goals. I had dreams. I went to officer candidate school, got my commission, wanted to fly for the Coast Guard. I didn't get picked up for flight school. Ended up in St. Louis in July of 01. And you want to talk about a buzzkill. I put in for every single Coast Guard station from Boston to Miami plus flight school, and I wound up in St. Louis at an inland river office in the middle of the country. And you've been to St. Louis. What a hard place to make friends. What a hard place as a 23-year-old kid. No real family, no real network or connections, and you got to try to figure out how to make friends in a town that isn't very kind to outsiders. It just, I had a great team. 9/11 happened. I became the chief of Homeland Security Operations and Intelligence. I worked with the FBI's anti-terrorism task force and did a lot of intelligence work and anti-terrorism work. And man, I had the world at my fingertips. It was amazing, amazing time. It was a sad and a horrible, tragic time, but for a young officer in the military that wasn't being deployed to war from a domestic standpoint, the war front was here at home for me. And so we spent a lot of time chasing people, investigating people, doing things I never thought I would ever have an opportunity to do. And all of that built an understanding of, I was a young officer. I had people in the Coast Guard that had been in the Coast Guard longer than I'd been alive. And how do you lead those people? How do you say, hey, we're going on a high risk, guns a-blazing, boarding, searches and seizures. And I know that your kids are older than me, but follow me and I'll make sure you're okay. And so that took a lot of, I learned how to deal with a lot of tenured, highly skilled people that were a lot older than me, and how to get them on my side and get them to support me and help me.
Yeah, not all that different than what you had to do when you went to UltraTech as well. And so that helped shape you. I get the St. Louis part is a part that, a lot of people don't leave there. They grow up there. And so it becomes very exclusive. And we dealt with some of that. I was lucky because I was on TV. So, pretty quickly people were figuring out who I was. But that's not an easy place to go at 23 years old. And nowhere is easy to go at 23 in the sense that you're trying to figure out who the heck you are. And then, by the way, you've got this high demand job and then everything that comes with it. For people that don't, I'm going to have you tell your signature story. You know exactly what it is in a moment. Because I think about the story a lot and speaking like that to me is the story that you tell right when you get on the stage. And suddenly it's like, wait, like this story is everything that Fred is about, just how you're wired, resilience and all that. We'll get to that in a moment. But like I don't know that people really know what the Coast Guard does. They just think it's a bunch of dudes on boats. I mean, like I'm showing total ignorance here, but I don't know. I'm always fascinated when I go to a port city to see it. I was shocked. I was up in Duluth a bunch of years ago. The Coast Guard presence up there. I'm like, really? I mean, it makes sense with all the Lake Superior and all that, but we don't. Most of us don't think like that, and we don't see the Coast Guard because unless you're on the water, you probably don't. What does the Coast Guard do?
I love when that question comes up because it's such a diverse. I spent 10 years in the service. I'm proud of what we did, and it's such a diverse branch of the military. And call us whatever you want. Call us puddle pirates. Call us shallow water sailors. I mean the jokes amongst the branches are always funny. But the Coast Guard, when I got in, was under the Department of Transportation, later evolved and moved under the Department of Homeland Security. Under the federal regulations in the U.S. Code, the Coast Guard is a federal law enforcement branch. And because of our authorities on the waterways, we're not under DOD because the Constitution states that the government cannot use its military forces to police its civilians. So the unique thing about the Coast Guard is we are a military branch, but we fall under an alternative, different department of the federal government. And the U.S. Code affords us a law enforcement authority that's unmatched by almost any other organization. I don't need warrant probable cause to pull you over, search your boat. If you're a U.S. flagged vessel anywhere in the world, I can pull you over, stop you, search you, seize your property if you're committing an illegal act. But the flip side, that's the sexy part of it. The flip side of it is the Coast Guard does search and rescue. I did a little bit of it. The search and rescue was hard for me. You looked at a weather report, you knew it was going to storm, but you took your kayak out onto the Great Lakes, and now you're in 6-foot swells and you're calling for me to come out and save your ass. That was a hard one to deal with. That takes a special sector of the Coast Guard to be able to do that. All of our mottos are so that others may live, no matter what division we're in, and that truly is. Whether you're in the law enforcement side, the search and rescue side, there's a pollution investigation side that regulates waterside facilities to keep our waters clean. The Great Lakes have a lot of ice breaking operations to keep commerce open so that they can transit the waterways. You get into, oddly enough, there's a small Coast Guard contingent in Leavenworth, Kansas. They have what's called an aids to navigation boat there. And they go up and down the navigable waterways and make sure that they mark the channels with buoys so that commerce can transit the waterways safely. So it's such a diverse, broad spectrum of everything we do. After 9/11, I was special deputized by the U.S. Marshal Service and was doing landside law enforcement, which is rare for that organization. So there's just, I've been on presidential protection details. So we do everything. And we've been deployed to every conflict since World War I. World War II, we were driving landing crafts, landing Marines, and, on the beaches. Vietnam, we were running river patrol boats up and down the Mekong. Desert Storm, we were protecting ships coming in and out of port for offloading equipment for the ground fighters. Iraq, Afghanistan, we were deployed to. So we're involved in every major conflict, not to mention the efforts of counter narcotics. I've had a lot of friends that were deployed to South America and doing counter narcotics, fighting the cartel in South America. So it really, truly is a branch that you can do just about anything you want to do. And you want to be an admin? Be an admin. There's 100 and some Coast Guard administrative payroll folks stationed in Topeka. That's our payroll and financial center.
Which would work for some people. It would not work for you. I know that. You're not wired that way, and that's not good nor bad. That's just you. So who would have ever thought that you would land in St. Louis and have just one of the most harrowing moments that anyone could have in a career? And this will give people a feel for what life could be like in the Coast Guard. It's not everybody's story, but take me back to that story that I know you tell a lot of times, but I think it just so describes you and your resilience and the way that you're wired.
Yeah. So it was interesting. When you sign that dotted line and you say you're going to put your life on the line, and again to your political statement earlier, I put my life on the line for any American. Doesn't matter race, color, creed, political affiliation. My job was to take care of you. It was right after 9/11. There was a lot of chaos, a lot of there wasn't real good interagency communications. There was all kind of struggles and growing pains. I was the chief of Homeland Security Operations. I was in charge of all maritime security. We had a boat that came into a federal security zone that wasn't authorized to be there. We had patrol boats that were following them, chasing them, if you will. They weren't heeding to our commands, and Myself and another individual jumped on a patrol boat and went head to head with that individual. They weren't deviating course, so we were head to head. They weren't turning, they weren't slowing down, they weren't stopping. And I rammed them head on at probably 40 plus knots, and got ejected out through the canopy of the boat. My partner had a nice clean ejection into the water, just had some bumps and bruises. But, I'm in full tactical gear, and I tore my left thigh muscle. I tore my right bicep muscle, bicep tendons, rotator cuff. My right kneecap was over on the side of my knee, and I'm in the water sinking, trying to pop my duty belt, drop my duty belt off. I had some divers drop in and pull me out. And that was that time where you're like, well, this is it. Cash that check. And there was quick response from the first responders, pulled me out. Off I went to the hospital. 6 knee surgeries later, 2 shoulder surgeries. I still struggle with a lot of back problems, arthritis in my spine, torn discs, bulging discs that I continue to doctor for and go to the VA for. But I'm on the top side of the soil. I have all my limbs, and there's a lot of people worse off. But that was kind of one of those determining factors in my career. Where the rubber meets the road, and you either commit or not. And it wasn't even a second thought. And I'm older now. I've got little kids. My bones ache, my body hurts, but and they certainly wear me down quick. But if I had to go back and do it again, and the outcome was different, and maybe I didn't make it, I'd still look to cash that check.
Yeah, well, it's a heck of a story, and a part of your story, and here you are now. Before I get to my baseball theme questions, I referenced it before, the need to be able to I wouldn't call it playing politics, to maybe not play politics but be involved with the politicians. Tell me about that, because you're regularly meeting with people on both sides of the aisle, and it feels to me like if we had more people that did that, the world might be a better place. You're doing it for a reason. It's important to do, but I've got to think that some of your background has helped you get to that, because we're so emotional about everything now, and I understand why we are, but it's amazing how often people aren't talking to each other.
Yeah, it's I do it for a reason. You have to, when you're in a role such as mine, where you're leading a company. Politics, I check politics at the door, and I expect all of my employees and all of my team to check politics at the door. We can talk about decisions that the administrations are making, but we're a tier 1 defense contractor. We're at the mercy of all politics. I meet regularly. I go to DC and lobby for defense spending, and you can get on the discussion of whether the U.S. is a warmonger or shouldn't be the world's police or whatever. But at the end of the day, what I care about and what I'm concerned about are the employees of my company and the work that we bring in. So we're a big F-35 manufacturing company. We produce a lot of components for the F-35. Whether you like it or not, it's just to give you an idea of the impact of that program alone. In the state of Kansas, there's 36 companies that are directly involved in production of some type of parts for the F-35. And in the state of Missouri, there's 27. In the state of Kansas, I'm looking at my chart that I keep up here to remind myself. State of Kansas is 4,300 employees, and then Missouri is 2,800 employees. State of Kansas is over 462 million in revenue and 279 million in revenue in the state of Missouri. Those are American jobs. That's American manufacturing. That's brothers, sisters, husbands, wives that program employs and affects. And it's my job to, as a leader of a company, to bridge the gap between both parties in the best interest of the success of the manufacturing industry within our states. That's what I do as the president of the National Tooling and Machining Association, and as the president of UltraTech. All week, I've been sending letters and corresponding with legislators on both sides of the aisle about the impact of the tariffs and the negative impact of the tariffs. I'm 100% bleed red, white, and blue. But tariffs right now and the way they're being implemented, they're not going to promote growth in the American manufacturing. They're going to hinder American manufacturing. As a matter of fact, this afternoon, Congresswoman Stipkovits' office is coming for a tour of UltraTech. I may not be a registered Democrat, but that's a constituent that's very important. I'm still a constituent. That's a representative that is extremely important to the survival of our company. Stipkovits has been very supportive of veterans, very supportive of manufacturing. She's been very supportive every time I've met with her of the F-35 program. Politics get checked at the door. Her office is here for a reason. They're here because we employ people within her community and it impacts the economics and the jobs of her community. And so I bury the political lines, and I try to bridge the gap between the two parties because that's my job. That's the representation I have to bring.
I mean, it shouldn't really matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or none of it or whatever. Like, I don't know. In the end, if it's making for better life, better jobs, better economy, better that, I mean, that is red, white, and blue. That's my non-political spiel to everyone. And whether it's Stipkovits on the left or someone on the right, if they're going to further your cause and your employees' causes and the community's cause, that's pretty common sense there to me, but not a surprise for a straightforward guy. Let's get to the baseball theme questions. What's the biggest home run that you have hit in your career?
I'd have to say it's where I am right now. So I've negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts all over this globe with oil companies, with defense contractors. In the end, none of that really matters to me. What matters to me is that I have employees that walk in this company every day that are happy to be here, proud to be here, will walk in my office and tell me, I have never had a better job, worked for a better boss, and worked at a better company. That's what matters. That's the home run.
That's what it's all about, really. And I said it before, when you find it, I don't mean even so much the home run. I'll call it the sweet spot of the home run, the purpose, loving what you're doing. That's a great place to be. And it comes with a lot of mistakes along the way. What's a swing and a miss? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, man, that list is long and distinguished. When you run as hard and as fast as I do, you step on a lot of toes along the ways. And I've burned myself a number of times. And I could, talk about those all day long. I would have to say, though, my biggest swing and miss was just this past year. There was a leader that I reported to on my team, on our ownership team, that I didn't see eye to eye with. And instead of being the bigger man and finding the common ground and how to work well together, I put up a lot of roadblocks, created a lot of tension, and didn't accomplish really. I lost sight of the ball and didn't really focus. My focus was I was distracted fighting a fight that I shouldn't have been fighting, and should have really worked harder to bridge that gap instead of throwing up those walls. And it caused a lot of problems. It set us back on some progress we were trying to make within the company as far as CapEx investments and improvements. It set us back probably about 10, 12 months. And that's on me. I lost focus on what mattered and was too busy fighting a petty fight.
Lesson learned, right? I mean,
yeah.
Leave the petty fights alone, and that's hard to do. Much easier said than done, but one that obviously has sat with you, I think, in a good way. I mean, not an easy way, obviously. What's small ball to you? I think you probably talked a lot about it. You have talked a lot about it so far in this podcast, but what are the little things?
The little things are easy. The little things add up to the big things. My little things is daily recognition of people that are really doing what they're supposed to be doing and going above and beyond. Our maintenance guy here, Chris, he operates how I operate. There's no isn't an answer. There's no such thing as a roadblock. He'll be here at midnight if he needs to be here. And I had the opportunity to send him and his wife for their anniversary down at the Capitol Grill. They'd never even heard of it, never been there. Yeah. And he's been busting his ass for us doing good things. And I knew his anniversary was coming up. And so I made him reservations and threw him a gift card and sent him and his wife down to the Capitol Grill for a fancy night out. That's something that will pay dividends for years to come. And that's small ball. That to me is those individual personal touches. And I do that with every single employee in this company, no matter what it is. You have a big idea that saves us some money, and I split those proceeds. I help, there's a return on your investment for your knowledge and your expertise. So those are the types of things that I try to do regularly that add up, that are, people would overlook, may not seem like a big deal, but those little things really are what turn into the bigger, greater success of the company is driven by that.
Amen to that. Agree on all of it. Okay, let's get to the I did the baseball theme questions. The 4 final questions. I do this every time. Well, I don't usually do that, but anyway, 4 final questions as we round the bases. Let's start with a fun one. I mean, you're a Pittsburgh guy at heart. Maybe not at heart. Yeah, you're still a Pittsburgh guy at heart. Everybody comes to Kansas City, and you got to give them your favorite barbecue, right? And so there's the only right answer is the one that you have, and your neighbor or your spouse or anyone might have a different answer. That's fine. What about Pittsburgh? Like, to me, the only thing I know is, it's got to be Permane Brothers, but I know it's more than that. Like, what's the go-to in Pittsburgh?
I haven't lived there in a long time. It's been 24 years that I've lived there. I grew up in a family where you really didn't eat out much. So, my go-to is my grandparents cooking on both sides of the family. That's where it was at. That's what holidays were about. The Christmas Eve dinners at the Italian side where it was 7 fishes, and that whole tradition, the Hungarian meals on my other side. If I were to go back to Pittsburgh now and say, let's go, I'm going to take you to a spot, we'd probably go to Vincent's Pizza, which is a killer pie place. I've had a hard time finding good pizza ever since leaving Pittsburgh. That'd probably be, if I had to go with a restaurant, that'd be what it would be. Permane Brothers, of course, is world renowned. Right, when I grew up there, it was just a handful of locations, and now they've commercialized. But
yeah, it's such a cliche thing to say, but pierogies, of course, but I love Pittsburgh. The super cool city, totally different city than what you grew up in too. I mean, it's a downtown baseball stadium, the football stadium. It's pretty cool stuff. Okay, second question, as we round the bases, amidst all of the stuff that you have going on, because I know you don't sit still all that well. Commercial airline pilot, scuba certified. I mean, what are you doing in your free time? Is that the stuff when there's free time? There is no free time.
Yeah, no, I don't really get to do that stuff anymore. I have an 8-year-old little boy that is an encyclopedia of football knowledge. And I have a 4-year-old little girl that has brought so much sass to the table with and dance and gymnastics. I leave work, especially Monday, Wednesdays. Try to get out of the office by 6. I go straight to swim class for my little boy. My free time, my evenings are the family. Everything I can do. And I have networking events after work that I go to and things like that. And my wife's a career woman. She's an attorney at an insurance firm and is just dominating the market. But she really carries most of the load with shuffling the kids. I get them off in the morning. She deals with them in the afternoons. And then, I show up in the evenings to events, but that's my free time. If I'm not at a Scott Havens happy hour networking, I'm with the kids hustling activities.
You're always hustling for sure. I was interested for my third question. Was reading in this that during COVID, able to get PPE when others could not, built business on selling them at a fair price despite availability. And I was reading that and thinking, we don't know what the next thing is. I know this, you're in an industry where the next thing is probably going to affect what you're doing. It just is, right? And so I'm wondering what you learned about that, because there's a lot of resilience there too. And I think hopefully we never have that again, but we're going to have something again, right? And I think there's that spirit there of like, you got to keep pushing forward some way and figure it out. I know that's what you have in you, but curious kind of lessons learned with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really talk about my side hustle. So I have a side hustle. It's called Night Raptor Tactical. It's a tactical equipment distribution company. Body armor and bullets, a very touchy topic. Mm-hmm. And that article you saw on the Shawnee Post was a very trying time. So I pivoted from distributing, tactical gear to distributing PPE on the side. And I distributed PPE to every major school district practically in this area. And the one thing, if there's a takeaway that anybody wants to learn, other than that I'm crazy and I will do anything and stop at nothing, is that I do everything above board and with 100% honesty. That is the only way to build a reputation and a career. And that's how I built UltraTech over the last 3 years, is on transparency and trust. And that's the way I run my life. And I found an opportunity to distribute masks, gowns, gloves, things like that during COVID as a first responder supply company. And I started distributing to every school district around that I could, to make sure that kids were safe and could get back in the classroom. And I put no money on it whatsoever. And that one particular contract that led to a lot of online chatter and a lot of hate thrown my way because I was a gun guy, was a 300,000 mask order at the Shawnee Mission School District that I put 5 cents a mask on as a profitability, or whatever it was, maybe 15. I forget the details of it now, but it was minimal. It was cents. And the next closest bid to me was $2.30 a mask, and I was at 75 cents a mask. So that tells you where the profit margins were and who had best interest in mind. And my wife was pissed. She had to park in the driveway all the time because the garage was full of pallets of masks and gowns and gloves and whatever. And I learned real quick in that situation that it didn't matter what your best intentions were. Somebody still was going to criticize what you were doing, how you were doing it, and why you were doing it. And I confront those challengers head on, and they really don't talk much anymore. But I learned a lot. There was a real eye-opening experience. But I like to think I'm prepared for just about anything there is, and I try to keep my family prepared and try to make sure that everybody I know is taken care of.
There's so much interesting there too, because before I get to the walk-off question, because I think we have perception stereotypes, right? A gun guy couldn't possibly be a mask guy, and a mask guy couldn't possibly be a gun guy, and it's not what it was about for you, right? And then everybody else gets caught in the noise. Yeah. And that's what happened. So it's like, basically, we have been programmed that you have to take a side, and it's like, well, why does there have to be why does it have to be one or the other? Can't it be all of it? Can't it be something like you could be against guns. I'm not a gun guy. I'm not necessarily against them. I'm against some, but we won't get into all that. But I have a lot of friends that are for it. Like I don't know. This gets back to the whole thing with, you doing what you're doing with politicians too. Like, I don't know. I think when you can live in all of those worlds, at minimum, you start to understand people a little bit better. And so it is possible to be a gun guy and also be bringing or helping get masks into schools for some of the same people, by the way, that are complaining about them that have gun, like, I mean, in a sense, you are going to piss somebody off any step of the way. Then again, that's never really bothered you, has it?
No, not really. I'm never going to make everybody happy. The only, I know what I'm doing is right in my heart, and that's what I do.
All right, the walk-off question, big picture. Since you love this place and you're growing this place and UltraTech, let's just finish up with that culture piece. Are you seeing big picture changes in this family of yours? I loved for your holiday party, which I was honored to be able to speak at. I wasn't speaking to your employees. I was speaking to your employees and their families. It was a great family event. What are you seeing from those people? Maybe, the ones that have been around a long time that, I don't know, maybe they feel like they're being taken care of. I know you have a great story of taking care of a gentleman who unfortunately passed away, and that had to have helped set the tone. Are you seeing a shift, big picture here? Or are you seeing people getting to where they deserve to be?
100%. Most of our promotions internally are all internal candidates. Anybody that walks in this office and says, I want an opportunity to grow, we work hard. And we're a small company. We're 50 plus people. But we work hard to find an opportunity for that individual to learn, grow, and develop. We've worked, like I said, outside of the community with a group called She Leads Driving Manufacturing to empower the women in the industry, and a lot of my ladies here are involved in that. And I again, that perception. I've got every walk of life here, and everybody here gets along, and that's how. If you disrespect an employee, a fellow employee here, based on anything about that employee, I will walk you out that day. I don't tolerate any type of disrespect here. We're here together to grow and develop and become bigger and better. And, Northrop Grumman was in here yesterday, and we have established a reputation with them about not only just being a great partner for them, but a great partner in the community with what we're trying to do to grow and develop people. And they recognize that, and that's important to me. Because if people, we're in the people business at the end of the day. It doesn't matter whether I'm making parts or planes or whatever the case is. We're in the people business, and every single person, no matter whether they want to climb the ladder, become bigger, better, or what, it's the core fundamental of human beings that you want to be recognized, acknowledged, and respected. And that's what I look to do. And that's developed into a culture where not only am I respecting everybody from the top down, but I've got everybody else respecting each other and working hard together. And that's going to take us into the future. Whether I'm here forever or not, I've set a tone that I hope can be a legacy that if somebody comes in behind me, the person that comes in behind me or that I promote into my role and I grow, understands that it's our people first and everything else will fall in place.
It's great stuff. Something that I think any leader could learn from in any profession. In Fred's case, it is with UltraTech, and they all benefit. All of your people and beyond are benefiting from your leadership, and we certainly have here on the podcast as well. So glad that we finally got to do this. Fred, thank you for coming on Rounding the Bases today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Joel. This was an honor, man. This was a big honor for me to come on the show. I really appreciate the invite.
An honor to have you, and love the shirt, of course, as well.
It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.